Welcome everyone to Simply Bitcoin. We break down the news from Twitter, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, websites by plebes or plebs. Drop us a like, subscribe. Joining us today, very special guest, Dr. Jeff Ross, fellow Bitcoiner, and he's also the founder and CEO of Shire Capital Management, LLC. He's going to join in on all the fun a little bit later, but right now, you know where we're going. It's number time. Let's do it.
Number time.
What's that line about putting your arm up a cow's ass? I know it's from like
I have no idea
Boy,
I have no idea what you're talking about, dude.
At the time of this recording, the block height is 696,577. The Bitcoin price, 46,590. Chain rewrite days, 975. Total public lightning capacity, 2,305.37. That's a new all-time high. Sats per dollar, 2,146. And the blocks to the halvening, 143,423. You know what, Nico? I'm gonna. This is what's happening right now live. I'm gonna drop the all-time high price because it's just depressing and nobody needs to see it.
I agree.
Okay?
I think it's noise. It's definitely not signal.
It's not helping anyone.
But the signal is, again, and I keep repeating this, it's the Lightning Network capacity. But not only that, it's 2,305. And you know what the phone code for Miami is? 305. So it's perfect. Anyways.
Nice.
But
it's kind of weird though, right?
It is.
2305, right? 55. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Maybe
not the numbers matter, but
maybe there's a symbol there. I don't know. Anyways, Phil, it's time for
the daily fail.
Jack Dorsey recently announced Square is creating a new business focused on decentralized financial services based on Bitcoin, using Bitcoin. What have you learned about Jack Dorsey's plans? Does it seem like he's building something that sounds a lot like Ethereum?
I'm skeptical about these decentralized finance on top of Bitcoin type of projects. Basically because like the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? This is that on Ethereum, there's like native functionality that allows you to essentially directly put either ETH or Ethereum-based assets into these smart contracts, into these lockboxes, where there's then like arbitrary conditions of any kind that can then govern how those assets get released. Bitcoin does not have that functionality to the same extent. Like Jack is basically going to have to essentially create his own system that enforces those rules. And then on the Bitcoin layer, the Bitcoins will just have to be owned by probably a multi-sig wallet controlled by like either Jack or the participants in the system. It looks similar, but it'll end up being something with a much weaker trust model.
I disagree.
Yeah, I know. We can't let this go on. We can't let this go on. But let's just for a moment here before we just tear this ridiculousness apart, right? Because we already know that there's discrete log contracts. Okay, we've got what's it called? PTLCs, right? Pointed time lock contracts. We've got. I know that there's atomic finance coming online. So okay. Regardless of the fact that he obviously, for some reason, no longer knows anything about Bitcoin. Once upon a time he did. Now he's just a clueless shilling his dog shit. And what he's referring to is the Turing completeness, right? That's what people use, like all those security holes that everybody exploits. Yeah, that's thanks to that completeness that they're using. Anyways, but besides that, for a second, let's focus on that lockbox idea, right? It kind of conjures up the idea that things are safe, things are secure. Well, according to the Rect leaderboard, Poly Network, had a rug pull for $611 million. That was just last week, right? We've got EasyFi at 59 million. Uranium Finance, whatever the hell that is, 57 million. Is that what a lockbox is like? You put money in and it gets rug pulled? Yeah, you're right. He's right. We really can't build the crap he's building on Ethereum, because we want it to actually work, so it's going to be built on Bitcoin.
Yeah, and look, it just goes to show, this idea, and he referenced to it, where this idea that smart contracts are safer than multi-sig solutions, that's absolute freaking bullshit, right? There's only a few people on the face of the planet that could audit these so-called smart contracts. They're putting a lot of trust on the creators of these smart contracts. And not only that, even the ones that are audited sometimes get hacked, right? So it's not a sure thing. With a multi-sig solution, it's very simple. You know, you either have the keys or you don't. It's black and white, right? So you're building on yeah, exactly.
Here you go, man. Here you go.
Boom.
This one was audited by QuantStamp, which was, you know, a really big shitcoin in 2017, 2018, right? This is what they're going to do, provide auditing services, and for some reason their token needs to be money. So there you go, Nico, to your point, $37.5 million rug pull. And they were actually audited by 2 separate auditors. Sorry, continue.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, I'm glad you pulled that up, man. And it just goes to show, it's like, yes, the smart contract, the fundamental failure is you're trusting on another human being, and the whole point of Bitcoin, right, is that you don't have to do that, right? With multi-sig, the way that they figured out that solution, it's very simple. You know, multiple keys, multiple people could hold multiple keys, right? And unless you have, you know, whether it's a 2 of 3 or 3 of 5, right? Unless you have the sufficient amount of keys to sign that transaction, can't do anything about it. That sounds a lot more secure than all these smart contracts that continue being hacked. To the extent that $600 million, that's a frick ton of money, just got, you know, rug pulled. Anyways, Dr. Ross, what are your opinions on this?
Yeah, I mean, you can have either a secure base layer or you can have a multifunctional base layer, right? That's full of holes. And so clearly that's what Ethereum is going for, is they want to be all things to all people. They want to be a developer's playground. And they have what they want, right? But if you're looking for security and peace of mind, you don't build on Ethereum. I mean, they're going to get wrecked. And I just look at Ethereum and all of altcoins as kind of the playground for Bitcoin to sort of pick and choose, the test net for Bitcoin to come up with what they think is a good idea to put on the world's most secure, decentralized base layer of money that's ever been created. It'll never be improved upon. It doesn't get any better than Bitcoin. So if you want to build something good that's going to last for decades, you build it on Bitcoin. Otherwise, you know, that other stuff is just going to go to zero. It's garbage.
Absolutely. It doesn't make sense to build any type of second layer technology on a less secure chain. Like, why would you do that? It doesn't make sense, right? So to continue to what you were saying, Dr. Ross, it absolutely makes sense, right? Like, any idea, right, in the shitcoin laboratory, right, that, you know, holds its own, eventually, you know, if that idea holds its weight, eventually it's going to be built on top of Bitcoin, right? You know, so there's literally no reason why shitcoins exist. I mean, I guess it's casino, and, you know, it makes the founders rich. I don't know. What do you think, Phil?
You know what? I think it exists to be the Swiss cheese of crypto. Like that's from what from what Dr. Ross is saying. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm like, that's what it is. It's kind of like that. It's a base layer of Swiss cheese. You know, everything just kind of falls through the holes.
I love that.
But look, right? I mean, I don't understand. Where does he come up with this idea that it's somehow more insecure than a smart contract that is owned by one person or a specific small subsect of people? Like, how do you even go through those? I don't understand how you do those mental gymnastics to come to that point where you're saying that on live television and you think you're making sense. And what's really sad is there's a whole bunch of, you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole bunch of fanboys that are just hanging on to every word he says. So it's awful. It's awful.
It is. And a lot of people are going to get scammed, you know, but It is what it is. Everyone has to pay a price of tuition, and eventually you find the truth. And the truth, of course, is Bitcoin. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review, sponsored by
Citadel 21. All right, everybody, the meme for today is brought to us by @LC_HODL. He's part of the meme tards. We had him on yesterday. He was Jack Dorsey for the day again. Apparently, I don't know why. But anyways, don't question the meme tarts. Anyways, the meme says, these plebs seem to want to help me. Or this is the low IQ guy. And then the mid IQ people are like, influencers are the only ones to listen to. Plebs just hate the blue check mark. And, the high IQ people are like, influencers are a fiat construct, plebs, handshake plebs. Absolutely true. This is a very deep meme. You kind of have to think about it again, and I think that you kind of have to understand Bitcoin culture, right? And of course, shout out to Jack Dorsey, so kind, putting, misinformation marks next to, people not to listen to, and of course, that misinformation mark is the blue check mark. But anyways, I would give that score a red and a blue pill. Which one are you going to take? I'm going to take the orange one. What about you, Phil?
Mind blown. Okay, you know what? I got something for this one. All right. So because this meme is so well balanced, I am giving it a yoga block.
Dude, that's you gotta stop beating my score, man. What about you, Dr. Ross? What would you give that meme?
That meme was so influential to me. It just really sticks to me. I'm not going to forget that one. Thank you. That was good. Right, let me put it up here.
Very well done.
Good? Hey, right there.
I don't think we've had a score like that.
No.
We got that meme stuck so much it stuck on Dr. Ross's hat. That's
on my Valeshire cap,
dude.
That's my Twitter handle. Valeshire cap. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No one's ever given a sticky score before, Phil.
But not only that, but it's a sticky score with a philosophical message.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Deep.
this is yes.
Dude, a yoga block, a red, a blue, an orange pill, and a sticky tape on a Valeshire. Anyways, okay, Phil, it's time for it.
The Daily News, sponsored by
Cloaks.
All right, everybody, the news for today. We brought Dr. Ross to talk about this. Very, very interesting development. Palantir buys $50 million worth of gold bars to counter, quote, Black Swan event. Now, I want to tell you what Palantir means. You guys remember that crystal ball from Lord of the Rings where Sauron talked to Saruman, and they hold that ball, and then Merry and Pippin picked it up, and then they saw what Saruman wanted to do. So, that's what it symbolizes. Anyways, it gets a little even sketchier. Data analytics firm Palantir, best known for its secretive work with the Central Intelligence Agency and other government bodies, has bought $50 million worth of gold bars in preparation for another Black Swan event. The Colorado-based company purchased $50.7 million worth of 100-ounce gold bars sometimes in August. Now, here's the signal. Palantir said in a short note buried in its 93-page second quarter earnings report last week, right? So apparently they didn't want too many people to find out about this. But anyways, the chief operating officer said it reflects more of a worldview. I kind of see that as a deflection. And he said, you have to prepare for a future with more Black Swan events. He said, referring to major unexpected events that can have negative consequences. Now, before I get into what I think they are trying to prepare for. Phil, what are your thoughts on Palantir, the Lord of the Rings ball, purchasing $50 million worth of gold?
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, look, their name aside, right? I feel like haven't they heard of Bitcoin? It's so much better than gold. It's the better gold. So I feel like they're not hedging their bet enough for the Black Swan event that's coming. So really that's kind of my take quickly,
What about you, Dr. Ross?
Gold did a commendable job as a stable store of value for the last several millennia during the analog age. We're clearly transitioning to the digital age, and Bitcoin is clearly the reserve asset of choice that actually, appreciates in purchasing power over time for the digital age. So maybe Palantir, looking at their little black ball, has seen the end of the digital age, and we're going back to the analog age, and so that's why they bought it. That's what makes sense to me.
I think that's an excellent assessment. And now we're going to get into the speculation territory. What could this Black Swan event be? Bitcoiners feel like it's written on the wall. We think it's very obvious. Let's get to it. All right, so check out this article from Bloomberg. Soaring cost of food is forcing families to scrimp? Scrimp? Is that the word, Phil? Scrimp?
Yeah, it is.
That's weird. It's a weird word. Anyways, at the dinner table, food prices in July were up 31% from the same month last year, according to an index compiled by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Now, I highlighted the part in the word that I want you guys to remember. A portion of the rise is transitory. fueled by supply chain disruption and extreme weather, right? Remember that rhetoric, remember those specific words, okay? Because you're going to hear it again. Now, let's check out this article from Vice. Bitcoiners are obsessed with inflation. Are they right? You know, and it says, I love how they put crypto enthusiasts. No, Bitcoin enthusiasts were worried about runaway inflation and are asking what the F happened in 1971. Now, if we scroll down, right, you know, they kind of explain like our whole, you know, pitch, but it's just funny who they rely on, right? Closer examination, however, reveals that most of the increased price experience over the past few months there it is again, from temporary bottlenecks and specific industries hit hard by the pandemic returning to COVID prices. As economist Paul Krugman, now let me point out who Paul Krugman is. Phil, do you mind reading this passage?
Yeah, he's been a fail quite a few times. Anyways, the growth of the internet will slow drastically as the flaw in Metcalfe's law, which states that the number of potential connections in a network is proportional to the square of the number of participants, becomes apparent. Most people have nothing to say to each other. By 2005 or so, it will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than the fax machines. Paul Krugman, quote from 1998.
So these dudes are using that as the source. Just pointing that out there. Anyways, I found this excellent thread by Drew_MacMartin. And let's check it out. At the turn of the 2nd century AD, the Roman Empire controlled all of Western Europe, parts of North Africa, and the Middle East. Some estimate up to 65 to 100 million people lived under Roman rule. Yet 150 years later, the empire was near collapse. There were many factors which caused the crisis of the 3rd century, notably political disorder. Sounds familiar. Political disorders, corruption, slowing expansion, wars. Sounds very familiar. The biggest factor was the debasement of the Roman currency. Now let's check out how big that debasement was. In 100, sounds very familiar. You know, it's like almost as if history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Anyways, by 110 AD, the amount of silver in the coin was 85%. By the year 270 AD, the amount of silver per coin dropped to 5%. Anyways, it goes on to say, right, it compares, right, it compares the similarities. Where the history lesson becomes eye-opening to me is when you compare the striking similarities between the Roman silver content chart, intentionally inverted to show the amount of non-silver in a coin, right? And we show you guys this chart all the time, right? This is the amount of assets on the Fed balance sheet. Why is this important? Because this is the mechanism the Fed uses to justify printing money, right? So essentially what they do is the Treasury issues T-bills. The Fed originally, right, you would offer those T-bills in the open market. The problem is that there's not enough money around the world to buy all those goddamn T-bills. So what the Fed does is it just buys them, it puts it on its balance sheet, and then it issues the money, right? So it sounds like a goddamn scam to me. Anyways, continuing to the article. Now this is crazy, right? And again, you see, the problem with currency debasement is that it is a hard habit to kick. Worse, most don't realize that it's bad. This held true in Rome, held true in Weimar Republic, and holds true today. All right, so here, you know, again, I'm going to keep saying this. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, right? This is from, you know, back in the 1920s, Weimar Republic. The chancellor would accept no connection between printing money and its depreciation. Indeed, it remained largely unrecognized in cabinet, bank, parliament, or press. Here you have the president of the United States basically saying the same thing.
I seem pretty confident that inflation is temporary, but if you're pumping all of this money into the economy, couldn't that add to...
No, look, here's the deal. Moody's today, when a Wall Street firm, not some liberal think tank, said if we pass the other two things I'm trying to get done, we will in fact reduce inflation.
So what he's trying to say, right, you know, if we keep printing more money, right, look at this goddamn blue dildo. I apologize for the word because that's really what it is. This chart goes back to all the way back to 1960, right? You know, imagine they're trying to pass $3.5 trillion in a social infrastructure bill. You know, again, the similarities are shocking. You know, you have the Lord of the Rings people, you know, the Palantir people buying, you know, a $50 million gold hedge, right? Could this be the black swan they're seeing? Again, that's speculation, but look, to Bitcoiners, at least, it seems like the signs are clear. Phil?
So he's using fuzzy math. That's the only way that you can come to that conclusion, right? That somehow all of the money printing is going to somehow defeat inflation, and it's not just this BS about the COVID stuff, right? So we have to remember this, right? Our prices were going up already pre-COVID, okay? So with all of our supply disruptions, certainly there is a certain amount of supply chain disruption, but I highly doubt that all the prices going up all around the board, right, including the houses that were already there before COVID hit, those prices, what was the supply there? Where was the supply disruption? The house disappeared while COVID was here and then it reappeared? Is that what's happening? No. So this is all, it's nonsense. These guys, they make up stories, okay? And that what you explained at the beginning with the T-bills, it really sounds like circle jerking. If like that really, it just sounds like two friends that are just constantly handshaking over and over again. And everyone else is just getting screwed watching them.
So it's funny because they absolutely lost shame in 2008, right? Before 2008, like that wasn't even an idea, right? But what happened in 2008 is all of a sudden they introduced this idea of QE, right? But not only that, what we didn't also realize, right, is that they also introduced, right, this mechanism where the Congress no longer has to pass the passes. The Fed could directly infuse money into the economy, and they actually tried to reverse that, right? And it caused we covered this. It was the reverse repo market. No, not the reverse repo. It was the repo market crisis, right? And we actually covered this, but I actually could show it pointed to you in the graph, right? Where the Fed actually tried to reverse their asset purchases. You could check it out right here in 2019, right? These are the asset purchases from the Fed. Like I said, in 2008 is when they really started this experiment, right? They tried to reverse it, and look what happened. Look what happened. It just went to the goddamn moon, right? So they can't stop this. Like this idea that they could stop printing money at the rate that they're printing. They came out with an article that they're tapering off. That's funny. Anyways,
before we go to Dr. Ross, I just want to add one thing that he said about Moody's. Okay, but in the 2008 crisis, Moody's had rated Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and all of that stuff, okay, as like AAA plus. So while he sits there and touts their whole thing about, hey, it's not some liberal think tank. No, you're right. It's just some paid shill. Anyways, I'm sorry.
So Dr. Ross, we are Bitcoiners first and foremost, right? We are not finance people. So please feel free to correct me on anything that I said wrong, and please give us your opinion as well.
You guys are absolutely right on. I mean, we're living in circus times. The stuff that Biden says and that all the Powell and these other people are saying, it's just rhetoric, and it's ridiculous. And they're talking, the Fed right now is talking about tapering, and you guys remember the term taper tantrum, and it's just like what you're saying. There's no possible way they can stop tapering, that they can stop printing money. There's no way that they can successfully taper, because the whole system is a house of cards. The entire financial system, stock market, bonds, real estate, everything is going to get significantly devalued if they turn off the spigot even for a few days. And so they're talking about it to try to get the public used to the idea and to try to get us to believe that they don't really need to be there doing that. So don't worry. The system is normal. It's going to normalize as soon as we turn it off. Everybody relax. And what's going to happen is the system is going to flip out. Stocks are going to crash, everybody's going to panic, and then they're going to turn it right back on. And that hockey stick that we saw in money printing is even going to get more vertical. It's just going to go parabolic. So I definitely believe we're in the final days of this Keynesian economic experiment, this credit-based system, consumption-based system, short-termism. It is all going to go down in a big ball of flames. And if we didn't have Bitcoin as an escape valve, I would be freaking out. And so I don't know what Palantir's deal is with buying 50 million of gold. To me, that seems almost like a signal. Like they're just sort of kind of throwing us off with a little red herring, and maybe they're giving themselves job security to be like, hey, you need us because we think a black swan event is coming again. Look at us. That seems kind of trivial to me. I mean, they're smart people there. I think they know what Bitcoin has to offer, and they know where the world is going. So it's just a big circus world. I don't really care. I think you need to opt out with Bitcoin as soon as possible.
Absolutely. It's the only way is opt out of that madness, and then the process, separate money from state, or the process is going to repeat itself like we saw in the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire, like we saw in Weimar Germany in the 1920s. Right now you're seeing the same. It's like you're seeing the same signs. Oh my God, how's it going to turn out, right? So, yeah, man, this is crazy. And Dr. Ross, if you were to give this a timeline, again, I know this is speculation. We don't like to speculate on the show, but if you were to give it a timeline, what would you rate? What would you give it? I'll say mine first. I think within the decade, my opinion.
Sure. So I just tweeted yesterday that this whole concept of hyper Bitcoinization is going to actually happen sooner than we think. And I think I used to say by the end of the decade. Now I've shortened that up. I think starting basically 2024 to 2026, we see massive acceptance of Bitcoin and people flocking to it from out of their own currencies. And so we see the end stages within 5 years.
Awesome. What about you, Phil? What would you think?
Yeah, I'm even though I love his more bullish sentiment than mine. I'm closer to you, Nico. I'm thinking though within the decade though. So yeah, within 5 to 10 years. I mean, look, at this point, right? It was QE infinity from QE1. But the thing is that the first QE, people pretended really hard that it wasn't going to be more QE. Like they really did. But we can clearly see that it is just QE infinity. So at this point, like Dr. Jeff Ross said, now the spiral is just out of control. Like that snowball is way too big.
No, and you could, Phil, you're right. Look this is pretending. This is the pretending, right?
Yeah.
And then this is where they tried to taper off, right? And as you see, this is the Trump administration, right? Conservative, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? And they clearly tried to taper off, and man, they had to reverse it. And this moment in time, I think, is we called it, right? This was around the reverse repo market crisis. No, not the reverse repo market. That's happening now. That's the actual repo. There's two crises. There's the reverse repo that's happening now, and then the repo, right? So I think this was around the same time. I might be wrong, but anyways, it just goes to show they can't taper off, So anyways, let's see what happens. But we have different opinions. 10 years, 5 years to hyper Bitcoinization, freedom for mankind. Awesome. But anyways, Phil, there was a software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases. All right, we've got Nix Bitcoin version 0.0.49 that was released, and that's down below in the show notes. Nix Bitcoin nodes are used for a variety of purposes, like making me feel uncomfortable while reading this description, and can serve as a personal or merchant wallets, second layer public infrastructure, and as backends for Bitcoin applications. Screw you, Nico. Down below in the show notes. Check it out.
I just write the description and I make Phil read it every day. And it makes him feel uncomfortable. It makes great TV. I'm sorry, Phil. Great entertainment value. But anyways, guys, before we go, I want to give a shout out to our awesome guest, Dr. Jeff Ross. If you want to see some awesome Bitcoin content, definitely go check out his Twitter. You can go follow him at ValeShireCap. And definitely go check out ValeShire.com. Live well, invest wisely. But anyways, guys, that was our show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the catastrophic fiat shitcoin fails and the Bitcoin news from the perspective, definitely consider subscribing. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys, for another episode of Simply Bitcoin.
We're living in a circus world, and the base layer of money is Swiss cheese.